Gregory Peck was born with the name Eldred Gregory Peck on April 5, 1916 in La Jolla, California. His mom and dad got divorced when he was little, and this really affected him. It made him think deeply about things, which showed up later in who he was as a person and how he acted in movies. Peck grew up mostly with his grandmother, who taught him about being disciplined and knowing right from wrong. These lessons really shaped who he became. When Peck was a young man, he went to the University of California, Berkeley, where he first wanted to become a doctor. But then, he got really interested in reading books, giving speeches, and doing theater. At Berkeley, he got really into acting and performing on stage. He found out he was good at it, and he also discovered he loved telling stories as a way to explore questions about what's right and wrong and what makes people tick. When he realized this, he gave up on becoming a doctor and decided to focus on acting instead. He ended up going to the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater in New York City, where he learned from a famous acting teacher named Sanford Meisner. Peck's early career started on stage, where he got better at his skills in live theater. He learned discipline and how to control his emotions, which later became what he was known for in movies. People noticed his Broadway performances, and in 1944, he acted in his first movie called Days of Glory. Right away, Hollywood could tell that Peck was really special. Unlike a lot of actors back then, he seemed smart and serious but not stuck up, strong but not mean, and in charge but not pushy. During the late 1940s and 1950s, Gregory Peck became really famous really fast, becoming one of the most respected leading actors in the business. Movies like The Keys of the Kingdom in 1944, Gentleman's Agreement in 1947, and 12 O'Clock High in 1949 showed that he was willing to take on tough topics. In Gentleman's Agreement, Peck played a reporter who showed how some Americans were prejudiced against Jewish people. This was a bold and important role that showed what he believed in and that he thought movies could help make the world better. Maybe the role that shows who Gregory Peck was more than any other is Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962. As the calm, honest lawyer who defends an innocent black man in the racist South, Peck gave a performance that went beyond just being a movie and became part of American culture. His Atticus Finch showed moral bravery, caring about others, and believing strongly in fairness. He became a hero not just for people watching movies, but also for many lawyers, teachers, and people fighting for justice. Peck's performance won him the Academy Award for Best Actor, but even more importantly, it made sure people would remember him as an artist whose work meant something more than just fun. He later said that Atticus Finch was the role he was proudest of, and it's easy to understand why. The character showed what Peck himself believed in: fairness, kindness, and quiet strength. Besides To Kill a Mockingbird, Peck gave amazing performances in lots of different kinds of movies. He starred in romantic movies like Roman Holiday in 1953, showing warmth and charm alongside Audrey Hepburn, big adventure movies like The Guns of Navarone in 1961, westerns like The Big Country in 1958, and darker, more psychological roles, like when he played the scary Dr. Joseph Mengele in The Boys from Brazil in 1978. Being able to do so many different things showed not just how skilled he was, but also that he was willing to take chances and do unexpected things. Starting in the 1980s, he began a wonderful, respectful, and really satisfying new part of his career by doing a lot of television work. TV was a medium that gave him something movies weren't giving him as much anymore: the chance to explore history, faith, right and wrong, and moral struggles with more time and detail. This change wasn't him giving up on being a star, but a smart and thoughtful choice. At a time in his life when many actors quietly disappeared, he instead picked roles that were meaningful and important, showing that getting older had only made him wiser and better at his craft. Television became his new way to create art, letting him reach millions of people in their homes while still making audiences think and feel deeply. Instead of slowing down, he went after these projects with new energy, choosing characters that had ethical importance and emotional complexity. His powerful presence on screen, which had always been connected to big Hollywood movies, worked perfectly on TV too, where small movements and quiet emotion often said more than big action. Every performance seemed careful, purposeful, and based on real experience, as if all the wisdom he'd gained over decades of storytelling now found its best way to come out. One of his most memorable television performances was when he played Abraham Lincoln in The Blue and the Gray. Playing one of the most respected and studied people in American history was a big challenge. But he took on the role with humility and quiet confidence. Instead of showing Lincoln as a distant statue-like hero, he showed the real man underneath the legend: a thoughtful, tired, and very human leader carrying the impossible weight of a country torn apart by civil war. Through the way he spoke, his meaningful silences, and a deep sense of inner struggle, he showed Lincoln's moral strength and emotional pain with amazing realness. It was a performance that wasn't just about big speeches, but about moments of thinking, uncertainty, and caring, reminding people that history is shaped by human weakness as much as by strength. Around the same time, he gave another deeply touching and highly praised performance as Monsignor Hugh O'Flaherty in the TV movie The Scarlet and the Black. In this role, he played the real-life Vatican priest who stood up to the Nazi government during World War II, risking his own life to hide and save thousands of Jewish people and Allied prisoners. With quiet power, he brought to life a man guided by strong faith and moral courage, showing heroism not as loud resistance, but as quiet, constant kindness. His performance showed the tension between spiritual duty and deadly danger, showing the amazing bravery it took to choose what was right when faced with terror. In October 1942, when the world was dealing with war and uncertainty, he got married to Greta Kukkonen, starting a part of his life filled with loyalty, growth, and the peaceful routines of family. Their marriage grew into a home full of young energy and hope as they had 3 sons, Jonathan, Stephen, and Carrie, each child adding new meaning and responsibility to his life. Even though the demands of work and the passage of time eventually led the couple to separate in 1955, their story didn't end in anger. Instead, it changed with grace. They chose to respect each other instead of being bitter, staying friendly and caring toward each other. This showed maturity and lasting respect that went beyond just being married. After the legal separation from his first wife, love came into his life again. This time it was Veronique Passani, a smart Paris-based news reporter whose intelligence and worldly knowledge matched his own depth and curiosity. Their marriage was a fresh start, shaped by shared experiences, cultural richness, and a renewed emotional connection. Together they built a combined family that made his personal life even richer, having a son Anthony Peck and a daughter Cecilia Peck. In this second part of Love and Partnership, he found not just companionship but also continuity, as his growing family became something that kept him grounded and inspired during the constantly changing demands of his public life. Through both marriages, his journey shows a man who valued family just as much as his work. He was someone who handled love, loss, and new beginnings with dignity, leaving behind a legacy not just of success, but of humanity, understanding, and lasting family connections. In the quiet years before he died, Gregory Peck, one of Hollywood's most dignified leading men, looked back on a lifetime in movies with unusual honesty. Known for his moral authority on screen and his controlled behavior off it, Peck rarely talked about gossip or sensational things. But when he talked about Robert Mitchum, the famously rebellious icon of American movies, Peck allowed himself a moment of honest reflection that surprised even the people closest to him. What came out wasn't scandal just for the sake of it, but a complex human truth about a man too often made into just a myth. Peck started by talking about the clear difference between their public images. "People like to pretend we came from opposite ends of Hollywood," he once said. "I was supposed to be the clean-cut conscience, and Bob was cast as the outlaw." The comparison, Peck said, was easy to make, but it wasn't complete. Mitchum's reputation for being rebellious, his fights with authority, his run-ins with controversy, his sarcastic humor, became the main story, hiding the depth of his talent and how seriously he took his craft. What Peck thought people misunderstood most, he explained, was Mitchum's discipline. "The shocking thing," Peck admitted, "is how hard Bob actually worked." Underneath the relaxed attitude and half-closed eyes was an actor who prepared carefully, studied his characters, and understood the power of saying less. Peck remembered watching Mitchum turn very little dialogue into moments that lasted in people's minds. "He knew that less could be more," Peck said. "That kind of control doesn't come from being lazy. It comes from confidence and intelligence." Peck also talked about Mitchum's reputation for being cynical. While many people thought Mitchum's dry humor meant he didn't care or look down on things, Peck saw it as protection. Bob used humor the way some men use a shield, he thought. It kept people at a distance, but it also kept him honest. According to Peck, Mitchum was very aware of Hollywood's fakeness and refused to pretend otherwise. "He wasn't interested in pleasing the room," Peck said. "He was interested in telling the truth, even if it made people uncomfortable." Maybe most surprising was Peck's revelation about Mitchum's sensitivity. "He felt things more deeply than he let on," Peck admitted. Mitchum's personal struggles and public mistakes, Peck believed, were signs of a restless spirit rather than being a bad person. Bob carried a kind of sadness, he said, and he didn't know what to do with it except turn it into art. That emotional undercurrent, Peck argued, gave Mitchum's performances their haunting power. Peck finished with a thought that felt both admiring and sad. If Bob had wanted to be safer, more respectable, he could have been, he said. But then he wouldn't have been Robert Mitchum. For Peck, the truth wasn't that Mitchum went against Hollywood rules, but that he exposed them. In sharing this perspective, Peck offered a final lesson. Greatness in art often comes wrapped in contradiction, and the most lasting talents are those brave enough to be themselves. In the end, Gregory Peck's words didn't tear down Robert Mitchum's legend. They made it better. What he revealed wasn't a shocking secret, but a deeper understanding, one that honored Mitchum not as a cartoon character of rebellion, but as a serious artist, complicated man, and unforgettable presence in the history of film. He passed away peacefully in his sleep on June 12, 2003, ending a life that had been marked by amazing achievement, quiet dignity, and lasting influence. He was surrounded in spirit and memory by the love of those closest to him, and he was survived by his devoted second wife and his children, who carried forward both his legacy and the values he cherished most. His death wasn't just the end of a life, but the final gentle curtain call of a man whose presence had left a permanent mark on generations. In death, as in life, he was laid to rest with serious grace and respect. His body was buried at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels Mausoleum in Los Angeles, California, a place of deep spiritual meaning and beautiful architecture, fitting for a person whose life had been guided by principles, faith, and moral beliefs. The mausoleum, peaceful and thoughtful, stands as a quiet sanctuary where fans, loved ones, and future generations can come to think, remember, and honor a legacy that went beyond time. Though he is no longer physically here, his spirit lives on in the memories he created, the lives he touched, and the lasting impact of a life lived with purpose, integrity, and grace.